Good afternoon, everybody. Mario Quintero here with the One Stop Shop, produced by marioshomenews.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Today we're going to talk about the 88 plus 1 turbulences that can actually go wrong in a real estate and a mortgage transaction. My job as a consultant for real estate and mortgages is to get my clients to the closing table while achieving their objectives, their goals for what they set out to do. However, along the way, we do review with them a list. And if you want to list a copy of this, just shoot me a message, an email, or whatever. These are the 88 turbulences that can go wrong. And these are the things that I have to overcome during the process for my clients in order to navigate these and get us to the closing table. So I usually review these at the beginning of the process with all my clients, and I let them know up front. You know, we go over these not to scare them, but to establish some conditions for what we're entering in, and not to be afraid once we hit 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these. Hopefully we don't hit that many, but what our action plans will be in the event we hit some of these. And there are basically 8 categories of the 88 plus 1. And I keep saying plus 1 because this past week we just added a new turbulence to the total number that we have, and that is the snowstorms that occurred up in the Northeast. Quick story. We had 2 borrowers doing a cash out refinance here in Miami. One of the borrowers lives here in Miami, the other one lives in New York City. We sent up the package to New York to have it signed by a mobile notary. They did their work. They provided the witness, the second witness to the documents. Everything was signed. The envelope was FedEx back, and all of a sudden the airport was grounded and the FedEx envelope couldn't get back out of New York City. It eventually got out, but it created a lot of stress for everyone here in Miami because that original package needed to get here for the second person to sign here for the loan to fund. Everything eventually worked out, but that created a lot of turbulence because we were tracking that package. It left New York, it got to Memphis. From Memphis, it got to the center here in Miami. We saw when it got on the truck, and then everybody was waiting for the final signatures to occur. And then we couldn't wait for the borrower to come after work, so we sent a notary with a witness to their job, and they basically signed that work, and we got the package back to the title company in time to be able to finish the process. So as you can see, just one minor thing or major thing for those that live in snowbound cities and state created a major turbulence for this one transaction. So that's why we call it 88 plus 1, because now we include blizzards that can impact a transaction here in Miami. So let's go over the 8 categories, and I'm going to highlight some very general items because each one has an extensive list of 5 to 10 to 15 items, but I'm just going to go over the main ones. Once again, if you want a copy of this list, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. You could send me an email, mario@stcloans.com, and I will go ahead and send you a copy of it. So the first one is the borrower, the actual borrower or borrowers. And that's probably one of the longest lists. There's like 22 items under the borrower-buyer column. And the reason for that is we need to make sure that the borrower remembers their past very clearly so that we don't hit any unnecessary turbulence moving forward, okay? And we need them to have accurate information up front regarding their past financial matters. So once again, we don't hit any turbulence. And very critical. And sometimes prior to us getting started, they don't remember everything. And once we start going over the 88 turbulences, a light bulb goes off, and then they declare some situations from the past that might either could hinder the process moving forward, or it gives us an opportunity to correct that matter before we even get started. So that's why this is very critical, especially before we even get started. Number two is the sellers. The sellers of a property obviously always want to sell for the highest price in the shortest amount of time, and sometimes they're not realistic in their approach or in the home that they have or in the things that are a current problem in the home that they have. So depending on how experienced their realtor is, that can either make or break that transaction in negotiating any turbulences that we can hit with the seller. Case in point, over the last year we've hit several situations where electrical panels have become an issue. These electrical panels are either very old or they are now considered a fire hazard. So when the inspection is done, if that panel is a fire hazard or needs to be replaced because the buyer cannot secure proper insurance on the property because of that electrical panel, then it's on the seller to change that electrical panel or try to help us to cure that issue. If they get stuck on that situation, then the buyer is not going to be able to close because they will not be able to secure insurance. So that's a good example of having a seller that either is motivated to sell or not motivated to sell, and they don't understand the process and what they're experienced, or they are fairly new with little to no experience. So when I deal with an experienced realtor, the transaction seems to go a lot smoother because everyone's expectations is pretty much in sync. When we deal with a new realtor who really doesn't have any experience, or maybe this is their first transaction, what I have found is that it's easier for me to try to coach them through the process than for them to get stuck. And a lot of them are afraid to go back to their broker for help because they don't want their broker to find out that they don't understand or have the knowledge to move forward. So in some cases, I've literally had to coach the other realtor to get them through the transaction. So it's very important when you select a real estate person, make sure that this is not a part-time gig and that they have the experience necessary to be an underwriter. A lot of times we get very proficient underwriters and move forward and get that file to closing. The last part of the lending is the actual closing department, which sometimes can create issues even at the end. After we've got a clear to close, it could be somebody in their funding department or their closing department that throws a wrench into the process, and we have to navigate through that issue at the end so we could get the closing and the funding done. So then the next one is the property itself and the inspections. And if there's issues that occur during this period, then we need hopefully an experienced realtor on the other side if we're representing the buyer, and we need the seller to also be motivated and understand. We just had a recent transaction where the house looked impeccable, and then once the inspection occurred, we had multiple issues. Primarily the roof required several repairs because it wouldn't have passed inspection for the insurance in the condition that it was in. There were missing tiles, there was cracks in several other tiles. The good news is that the seller was motivated enough to get that all repaired and done. The air conditioner was in bad shape, and the seller was willing to bring a contracted, licensed AC company and complete all the repairs and clean out the entire unit so that we can move forward. These were two major items that needed to be negotiated and worked through, and fortunately we got through those things. And then at the last moment, everything worked out and everything was done timely. We got to closing 4 days ahead of schedule and everybody was happy. The last one is, the next to last is the escrow and title company. We've been using CNC Title Company for many years, and the reason for it is because of their tremendous experience and also their efficiency in working through issues that can arise with liens and permits and things of that nature. The experience of the title company is critical, and a lot of people don't even consider that. And the reason I tell you that is because we've had several closings in the last few months up in Palm Beach County where the seller chooses the title company, and unfortunately we've dealt with a couple of disasters with those companies. We eventually closed, but you could tell the difference in the efficiency between the company we usually use, CNC Title, and those companies up in Palm Beach County. I'm not going to name them, but it's just that apparently there are new entries into the title and escrow business, and they don't have the experience to do what needs to be done. And I will tell you that a title and escrow company holds a high liability factor due to all the funds that are coming through their escrow and funding accounts. And it's very important that they know what to do and that everything is squeaky clean, because we can run into a problem if we have someone that doesn't know what they're doing. So the last thing I want to talk about is the appraisers. And recently we've had some issues with values coming in short, below, whether it's because the price of the home was too high or the appraiser themselves is not experienced enough. And we do have a large number of appraisers that are new to the business. When I say new, I'm talking maybe less than 3 years in the business, because a lot of the highly experienced appraisers left the industry back in 2010 when we had the real estate bubble, and they decided they had enough and they weren't going to do anymore. So from 2010 to now, we've had a high influx of new appraisers, and a lot of them their main thing is they want to protect their license. They don't want to make a mistake, and they rather be super conservative than have the experience to do what is needed to get the proper value. And sometimes that creates a problem during the transaction, and it creates turbulence, because then the price has to be renegotiated with the seller. So these are a lot of the things that we navigate through for our clients. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, feel free to give me a call. At the office is 305-598-1600, and on my cell, 305-588-0451. And if you want a copy of my 88+1 Turbulences, just feel free to email me at mario@stcloans.com, and I'll be more than happy to send you the list so you have an idea of some of the things that you're going to have to overcome in buying a house or financing a house. As always, feel free to share this video with friends and family, because you never know who you will be helping during this process. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you next week, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.